Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're stepping back in time over 100 years to a landscape of mud, wire, and unimaginable courage. We're going to explore what life was really like for the English soldiers in the trenches of World War I. It's a story that's often told, but the day-to-day reality is something that's hard to truly comprehend. Forget the grand strategies for a moment. This is about the individual, the Tommy huddled in a ditch in northern France, thousands of miles from home. Imagine this. You're woken before dawn, not by an alarm clock, but by the orders stand to. You and your mates clamber onto the fire step, rifles ready, peering into the misty gloom of no man's land. This is the most dangerous time of day, when an enemy attack is most likely. For an hour, you stand there, every nerve on edge, listening for any sound, any movement. As the sun finally rises, the tension eases, but only slightly. The order stand down is given, and the daily grind begins. The first order of business, often, it was the rum ration. A small amount of dark, strong rum was issued to the men. It was a brief moment of warmth in a perpetually cold and damp world, a small comfort that was looked forward to with almost religious devotion. After that, it was breakfast. If you were lucky, it might be bacon, but more often than not, it was tinned bully beef and a hard biscuit, a type of cracker so tough that soldiers would sometimes grind it up and mix it with water to make a paste. With breakfast over, the day was filled with endless chores. There was no sitting around. The trenches were in a constant state of decay. Rain and shellfire would collapse the walls, so you'd spend hours filling sandbags and repairing the wooden supports. You'd be sent out to repair the barbed wire entanglements, often under the watchful eye of enemy snipers. Draining the waterlogged floors was another relentless task. The men would dig small channels, called sumps, to try and collect the water, but in the Flanders mud, it was a losing battle. This constant wetness led to one of the most dreaded afflictions of the trenches, trench foot. It was a painful condition caused by prolonged exposure to damp, cold, and unsanitary conditions, which could turn a man's feet black and, in severe cases, lead to amputation. And then there were the rats. These weren't ordinary rats. They were huge, bloated creatures that feasted on the scraps of food and, grimly, on the dead. Soldiers would tell stories of rats as big as cats. They would steal food, crawl over sleeping men, and were a constant, unnerving presence. Alongside the rats were the lice, or chats as the soldiers called them. They lived in the seams of their uniforms, causing constant itching and a condition known as trench fever. Men would spend any spare moment they had trying to kill them, running a lit candle along the seams of their shirts to burn the lice and their eggs. Amidst this grim routine, the soldiers found ways to create a semblance of normality. They wrote letters home, pouring their hearts out onto a page, careful to censor the true horrors they were facing so as not to worry their families. Reading letters from loved ones was the highlight of any soldier's day, a vital link to the world they had left behind. They played card games, sang songs, and developed a dark, unique sense of humor. This trench humor was a crucial coping mechanism. They'd joke about the food, the rats, the shelling, anything to keep despair at bay. It was this camaraderie, this bond forged in the most extreme circumstances that held them together. The man next to you wasn't just a fellow soldier, he was your brother. You relied on him for your survival, and he relied on you. But the ever-present threat was the shelling. The sound of artillery was a constant backdrop to life in the trenches. It could range from a distant rumble to a deafening, earth-shattering barrage that would go on for hours or even days. The sheer randomness of it was terrifying. A shell could land anywhere at any moment. Soldiers suffered from shell shock, what we would now recognize as post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD. The constant fear, the noise, and the horrific sights left deep, invisible wounds that many would carry for the rest of their lives. And then there were the moments of intense, terrifying action. Going over the top, the shrill whistle would blow, and you'd have to climb out of the relative safety of the trench and advance across no man's land towards an enemy armed with machine guns. It was a terrifying prospect that required a level of bravery that is almost impossible for us to imagine today. Yet, it's crucial to remember that these weren't just faceless soldiers. They were individuals. They were farmhands, factory workers, clerks, and teachers. Young men, many of them teenagers, who had answered their country's call. They were poets like Wilfred Owen and Siegfried Sassoon, who captured the grim reality of the war in their powerful verses. They were ordinary people thrust into an extraordinary and terrible situation. Their resilience was incredible. In a world of mud, fear, and loss, they held on to their humanity. They found humor in the darkness, friendship amidst the chaos, and a deep, enduring courage that saw them through the longest days and nights. When we think of World War I, it's important to look beyond the dates and battles. We must remember the millions of individual stories, the personal sacrifices, and the sheer human spirit that endured in the trenches of the Western Front. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. The experiences of these soldiers shaped a generation and continue to echo through our history today. If you found this video insightful, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into history. And as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next one.